what are we doing? He was the RB3 in points per game last year. Like, this guy should be going like late second, early third, and you're getting him in the 5th round. What are we talking about? That is free money on the board. It's time. I am staking my reputation on these fantasy football players. I have fallen in love this offseason with these 15 names, and I will be staking my reputation on them. This is my Guys episode. Players that I refuse to leave a draft without. We're going to have as much stock of these names as we possibly can get. Let's get straight to it, baby. 15 names. We'll go quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Starting with the quarterback. My guy this year is Jaden Daniels. Yeah, look, I like the Commanders, all right? So you might say there's some bias, but look, in 3 of the last 5 years, a rookie quarterback has finished top 12. 60% of the time, a rookie quarterback has finished top 12 in the last 5 years. CJ Stroud did it last year. In 2020, we had Justin Herbert. In 2019, Kyler Murray. So why do I think Daniels should do that in 2024? Well, let me ask you guys a question. What do the best quarterbacks in fantasy football have in common? Well, I'll tell you, the quarterback 1 overall finish in fantasy football in 4 of the last 5 years have had this in common: at least 700 rushing yards or 8 rushing touchdowns, right? Josh Allen, 3 out of the last 5 years, quarterback 1 overall. Also, Lamar Jackson, those 4 quarterback 1 seasons had at least 700 rushing yards or 8 rushing touchdowns. And here are the quarterbacks that I believe can put up those numbers this year: Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Anthony Richardson, probably the easier name here to mention. Daniel Jones has done it before, probably not off an ACL. And then I also think Jaden Daniels can do it. Why? Because Jaden Daniels is going to be a nightmare for defenses to defend on the ground. Daniels at LSU, back-to-back years with over 1,000 rushing yards and 10 rushing touchdowns. In the entire SEC last year, even if you include running backs, Jaden Daniels was 3rd in total rushing yards. And in the 153 years of college football, he is the first player and only player ever to have 350 passing yards and 200 rushing yards in a single game. And that wasn't versus a, terrible team. That was versus Florida, as in them Florida Gators down south, okay? So this dude is legit. He is the truth. And the best part is he's extremely cheap in drafts. If you look at a 12-man league, this is where you got to draft him in ESPN at the 1104 based off ADP, the 1008 in Sleeper, and the 906 on Underdog on average mid of the 10th round. So look, I'm drafting Jaden Daniels. If you're going to pass on one of the elite quarterbacks in rounds 3, 4, 5, maybe you pass on an Anthony Richardson or whoever, CJ Stroud, that's going there, then you can target Jaden Daniels late. All right, let's get to the running backs. I got 3 running backs for you. How about Zamir White? Zamir White, officially a my guy this year. I'm ready to be hurt if I need to be hurt this year, but he should drown in volume. Zamir White should have more volume than he can handle. And as most of you know, you need to have a certain amount of volume to be a good fantasy running back. I mean, okay, let's look at 2023, for example. Let's look at running backs last year who finished top 12. On average, they got about 18.3 total touches per game, total opportunities per game. We got to see Zamir White as the RB1, the starter for the Raiders, 4 games last year from weeks 15 to 18 when Josh Jacobs went down with an injury. In those 4 games, Zamir White's averages as a starter over 23 touches per game, over 114 total yards per game, over 15 fantasy points per game, and in that span, he was the RB9 overall. He averaged more points per game in those 4 weeks than Saquon Barkley, Aaron Jones, Bijan Robinson, Travis Etienne, James Cook, Derrick Henry, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, and Alvin Kamara. And I'm not telling you Zamir White is going to finish top 12, but at minimum, we got to agree, the volume is there for him to do it if he can be efficient. And this team under Antonio Pierce should get back to the Raider way and establishing the rock. If you look last year, this team with Josh McDaniels as the head coach averaged about 22.5 rushing attempts per game. With Antonio Pierce, that number jumped up to almost 26 rushing attempts per game. Zamir White is an ideal RB2 or RB3 if you're going to go anchor RB to start your draft and smash wide receivers and get your star quarterback and an elite tight end. He is an ideal guy to target in rounds 7, 8, that kind of range. All right, another running back that I am in love with this offseason. I don't understand this one, guys. Alvin Kamara. And when I say I don't understand, I cannot comprehend his ADP this year. I do not understand why people are valuing him so low, and that is why we're obsessed with Alvin Kamara, because he is so cheap and he has top 5 upside. So right now, if you combine Underdog, Sleeper, and ESPN, on average, he's going as the RB16 off the board, the 508 late 5th round in drafts, okay? RB16 off the board. RB16 would be Alvin's lowest points per game finish ever in his 7-year career. In fact, he has finished top 8 in points per game 6 out of the last 7 years, and he was the RB3 in points per game last year. Like, this guy should be going like late 2nd, early 3rd, and you're getting him in the 5th round. What are we talking about? Last year, Alvin Kamara averaged more points per game in 2023 than Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, Rachaad White, and Derrick Henry, but is being drafted significantly lower than these names. What are we doing? That is free money on the board. And look, as much as I like Kendre Miller as a prospect, he's had another offseason dealing with injuries, and outside of Kendre, there's really no threat to Alvin Kamara's touches in this backfield. You can see a recent mock here in a 12-man PPR start 9 league. I got Alvin Kamara at the 502 as my RB2 after starting with 1 running back and 3 wide receivers. All right, the last running back that I am staking my reputation on, oddly enough, this is like back-to-back years. I've been like the Etienne guy on YouTube. I'm going to be him again. Travis Etienne is another my guy, in love with him this year. Let's recap his career so far, okay? In 2022, great first season coming off an injury, averages over 5 yards per carry. In 2023, progresses from 12 fantasy points per game to 16.6, but the efficiency comes down. In 2023, the Jags heavily leaned on Travis Etienne, okay? Averaging over 19 touches per game. He was 6th in snap share amongst running backs, 8th in the total attempts share of his team amongst running backs. He was 5th in expected fantasy points and actually scored the 3rd most fantasy points, so outproduced what people expected of him. And here's what's strange to me. The number one reason why people are telling me they will not draft Travis Etienne this year is because of his offensive line. Okay. All right. So you're not going to draft Etienne because of his offensive line. That leads me to believe his offensive line was good last year then, right? Because wait, he finished RB3 overall. He must have had a good offensive line last year, right? That's the argument we're making. No, wait. Had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL last year. The Jags were 27th, right? And PFF notes that no Jacksonville offensive lineman posted a PFF grade above 70 during the 2023 season. The Jags O-line was awful last year, and Etienne still averaged 16.6 points per game. This offseason, they added Mitch Morse, the center from the Buffalo Bills, who used to start for them, and they re-signed guard Ezra Cleveland. So it can't get worse than what the offensive line was last year. And I know the Jags say they want to scale back Etienne's load, but we got to take this seriously for a second, okay? If they really intended to scale back Etienne, which they said last year they were going to do with Tank Bigsby, wouldn't they have brought someone serious in to compete with him? Look at that depth chart, right? It's like Etienne, Bigsby, Dearness Johnson. Like, what are we even doing? Guys, Tank Bigsby, I'm not even exaggerating, was probably the worst per touch running back in the entire NFL last year. Don't believe me? Let's look at this in. Let's look at running backs in the NFL last year with 50 carries. All right? 68 running backs last year had 50 carries. 68. This is where Tank Bigsby ranked amongst those running backs. PFF grade, he was 50th. Yards per attempt, 68th. Dead last. Yards after contact per attempt, 61st. Missed tackles forced, 62nd. Breakaway percentage, 68th last. He had not a single breakaway run on his 50 carries. So you can make a really strong argument, in my opinion, that Tank was the worst running back per touch last year. And to recap, Etienne finished top 3 overall with a bad offensive line last year, was top 6 in points per game. His quarterback got injured halfway through the season, and people are scared to draft him this year at a discount. I don't get it, but I will be drafting as much as I possibly can get. All right, let's move on to the wide receiver position. You having a good time? I hope you are. Here we go, wide receivers. Let's talk about Deontay Johnson. Okay, last year, the Carolina Panthers had a wide receiver who finished top 17. That wide receiver was old man Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen averaged 13.6 points per game on 8 targets per game. I personally view the Deontay Johnson trade as an upgraded version of what worked in Carolina last year, okay? What worked for Bryce Young? It was the Adam Thielen and Bryce Young connection. Well, now you get to replace Adam Thielen with Deontay Johnson, a younger version of him, and Deontay is a target earner. In his first 5 years in the league, he's averaging 8.3 targets per game for his entire career. And let's talk about Bryce Young, because I imagine the comments are going to be, well, Bryce Young sucks. Bryce Young sucks. Well, what if I told you in the last decade, just 29.2% of rookie quarterbacks have been able to produce a top 24 wide receiver finish in fantasy football, and Bryce Young is one of those names. Bryce Young is the select few 29% of quarterbacks who have done that. He is one of 7 quarterbacks out of the last 24 rookie quarterbacks who have started for their team. And Dave Canales is now on this team, the quarterback whisperer. In 2022, he helped Geno Smith revive his career. In 2023, he goes to Tampa Bay, does the same thing for Baker Mayfield. In 2024, now with Bryce Young, everything this team has done this offseason has been to help Bryce Young. Bringing in Deontay Johnson, drafting a running back, drafting a wide receiver, bringing in an offensive lineman and Robert Hunt. So I believe Deontay will be the alpha on this team. I think he's a huge steal in drafts, and this team is sneaky, man. I think they'll be better than people think they will be. All right, the next wide receiver. How about Rashee Rice? I love Rashee Rice, man. I really love him in drafts this year. I think you're getting an incredible discount. If we remove the off-field issues, because the reality is, guys, these off-field issues, they will not be dealt with this year. You do not need to worry about a suspension. Think about Alvin Kamara, the year he got in that fight. That, it took a whole year, another NFL season for that to be dealt with. Rashee Rice will play all the games this year. I'm confident in it. And what is there not to love about Rashee Rice? The player. He had one of the best rookie seasons ever as a Kansas City Chief. If you look at Rashee Rice, where he ranks amongst all Chiefs rookie wide receivers all time, one of the oldest franchises in the NFL, this is where he ranks all time. 3rd in targets, 1st in receptions, 2nd in receiving yards, and 2nd in receiving touchdowns. And he's connected to the best quarterback of our generation, and he's already proven he can be the guy. People keep saying, well, Hollywood's there. Oh, no. What if Xavier Worthy is what if he can be We've already seen Rashee Rice was that dude for this team, and they won a freaking Super Bowl, guys. If you look at week 11 onwards, after the Chiefs bye week, Rashee Rice, his snaps shoot up, right? He finally becomes a starter, and from that point onwards, targets per game through the roof. He averages 17 fantasy points per game from weeks 11 onwards and finished as a wide receiver 9 in that span. Rashee Rice from week 11 onwards averaged more points per game than Mike Evans, Michael Pittman, Brandon Ayuk, Devonta Smith, DK Metcalf, Chris Olave, Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, Stephon Diggs. All right. If there wasn't all this nonsense about his off-field issues and them drafting Xavier Worthy, where would Rashee Rice be drafted this year? Genuinely, tell me where you would have drafted him. Because for me, it probably was where Nico Collins is going. Is that crazy to say? I don't think it's crazy to say. Some people might think it is. So, gotta draft Rashee Rice. All right, the last wide receiver we're putting our stamp on here before we get to a tight end. A rookie, Vlad the Space Creator McConkey, all right? If you know, on the Dynasty channel, I love this guy as a prospect, and he is obviously with the Chargers. The Chargers have the most vacated targets in the entire NFL. Vacated meaning targets that are up for grabs. Guys who have left this team that left targets behind. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, Gerald Everett, 395 sweet targets available for someone to go out and grab. I think Vlad McConkey will be the wide receiver 1 at the end of the season. At minimum, he will be the one to own in the playoffs. 63% of the Chargers targets are available, guys. 24 targets inside the 10-yard line available. And this whole narrative that the Chargers won't run or won't throw the ball, rather, they're only going to run the ball. It's just overblown. Every team is going to have to throw the ball at some point, unless you're Arthur Smith, and you just think it makes sense to run the ball when you're down 3 touchdowns in the 4th quarter, right? Good news. This isn't Arthur Smith. This is Jim Harbaugh, okay? And Jim Harbaugh has had a ton of success with fantasy wide receivers as an NFL head coach, all right? From 2011 to 2014, as the head coach for the 49ers, we saw Michael Crabtree finish wide receiver 27 in 2011 and 2012, wide receiver 15. In 2013, he had a wide receiver 15 finish with Anquan Bolden. Again in 2014, wide receiver 18. And Vernon Davis, a top 5 tight end in 2013. So this whole notion that the Chargers aren't going to throw the ball at all. Okay, so what? They're going to be in a game with Patrick Mahomes and Pat's going to be throwing the ball over the field and they're not going to throw the ball? I just don't buy it personally. So I am in on Vlad McConkey. I think his price is going to be really, really affordable now that people are worried about Justin Herbert and obviously Vlad himself. All right, and the tight end that I am staking my reputation on, and then we got some honorable mentions, Kyle Pitts. My sweet, sweet Kyle Pitts. I'm in love. All right. I can't lie to you. This is a guy that I absolutely was obsessed with coming out of Florida. And friendly reminder, if you hear the name Kyle Pitts and you're cringing, I just want you to remind you what Kyle Pitts has been through. He's been through hell And we should put some respect on his damn name, okay? The last time Kyle Pitts had even average quarterback play was his rookie season with Matt Ryan. Guys, think about how long ago that was, okay? And that rookie season for Kyle Pitts made history, okay? Kyle Pitts was 1 out of 2 tight ends in the last 2 decades with 1,000 receiving yards. Actually, that's all time, rather, is what I meant to say. He's 1 out of 5 tight ends all time with 68 receptions as a rookie. He's 1 of 4 tight ends all time with 110 targets. He's 1 out of 3 tight ends all time with 15 plus yards per reception. And since that time, his quarterback play has been the bottom of the league. Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder. It's been truly like the worst quarterback play you can possibly ask for, but now he gets to play with Kirk Thuggins, Kirk O'Chains, who just made TJ Hawkinson a damn fantasy superstar. Do not be sleeping on Kyle Pitts. You gotta draft him. He is the cheapest of these top names. When you think of Kelsey, when you think of Laporta, McBride, Kincaid, Andrews, Pitts is always going to come off last off the board there, and I think he has just as much upside as those other names. Now, I'm going to talk about some honorable mentions. I can only make this video so long, but these are also names that I'd like to put my stamp on that I will be drafting as much as I possibly can. Kyler Murray, another quarterback I think is priced really, really well, has clear top 5 upside. Trey Benson, if James Conner goes down, we love us some Trey Benson. Raheem Mostert, I think his price is so affordable this year. What if Miami has the same roles for those 2 guys back? I mean, Mostert could be a huge steal. George Pickens, man, I really, really wanted to put George Pickens in this list, but I'm recording this on the 6th of August, and I don't know if Brandon Ayuk is going to get traded or not, right? We got Slick Ricky over on Twitter or whatever his name is telling us he's going to be a Steeler, so I can't make this video now. If I knew Brandon Ayuk was not on this team, I would have made George Pickens one of the official my guys. I just don't know. All right, Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think that offense is going to take a huge step this year through the passing game. Jalen Polk, I think, will be the wide receiver 1 in New England. Again, if Ayuk doesn't get traded there. And then Evan Ingram, who led tight ends in targets last year. The Jags have so many vacated targets. So those are my guys, the players I'm absolutely in love with this year. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Just a heads up, if you want to use my rankings for your draft, first off, I'm flattered. Second off, I have a cheat sheet available for you guys on the Flock Fantasy website. If you want to get access to this, very simple. All you got to do is check out the pinned comment, become a Mother Flocker member with the promo code LAND. That's going to get you 30% off. It'll get you the cheat sheet so you can draft. You can print it off, mark off players as you go. It'll show my sleepers. Guys, I'm maybe a little bit hesitant to draft targets. So if you want to win your draft, I'm going to try and help you do that. But you also get access to all the premium tools on the website. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Go kill it this year, and all love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.